All right, we are live. Yoav Susz, welcome to the future of fitness, man.
Thanks very much, Eric. I'm really, really excited and glad to be here.
Yeah, it's artificial AI is just like I think I talk about it on every single podcast over the last like 3 to 4, maybe more, 3 to 5 months. And I had the opportunity to interview the founder of your company, Omri, like I think it was like 5 or 6 years ago. Like it was a long time ago. It was back when you guys had the V trainer, which was like the running coach in your ear. And I remember because I was using it. I was running trails in Truckee, California, and I was playing with it. I'm like, okay, there's definitely something here, but it's not quite there yet, right? And so you guys have been in this world of AI for quite some time, and obviously it's now in the forefront of almost every conversation. Out there. So you guys know a little bit about this. You've been playing in it for a long time, and it's going to be really cool to get your insights on, how you guys call it enterprise AI, AI as a service, and really fundamentally, getting better health outcomes. And
That's right.
I'll say one more thing to set the table, and then we'll get into your interviews. I was at URSA earlier this year in 2023. I saw a panel on AI, and it was good. Loved all the speakers, all friends of mine, and they did great job talking, especially about like, okay, well, how do we use this for marketing? How do we use this for, in reference to AI, like, operations, and how do we clean things up that way? But what Omri stuck with me is and really grabbed me was like, well, what I'm more focused on is getting better health outcomes, not necessarily the marketing. And all that leads to better health outcomes, right? We become better marketers, we become better at operations, we retain better. But that was something that really grabbed me, and I tried to uh, get in touch with him right after the panel, but there was just a line of people who want to talk to him, so I'll just follow them later. Anyway, so let's get into your background, Yoav, just to set the table, and then we'll go from there.
Cool. My background. So I'm a little bit all over the place. I'm originally from Israel, as my name implies, my difficult last name to pronounce and first name. But I grew up in the UK. So I lived in the UK from the age of 1 to 13. I went back to Israel, served in the military for 4 years. I actually ended up going to law school and practicing as a lawyer. I think I've never so quickly realized that I'm in the wrong place doing the wrong thing as I did when I walked into that law firm for the first day. And it's no disrespect to my friends which are lawyers, but it just wasn't the right profession for me. So I decided that I wanted to make a change. And I was fortunate about 10 years ago to come to the US and to go to business school at NYU. And from there, I very quickly fell into the world of tech and the world of startups. I mean, I was a consumer before then, but I got a chance to get under the hood and learn how the sausage is made. And the first company that I joined was also in the world of AI, company called Optimove, which focused on the world of retention, primarily for the world of gaming and retail and financial services. Basically, kind of how do you understand your existing customers or clients and identify which ones have higher lifetime value, lower lifetime value, and then how do you engage with them in a sustainable way? So I was there for a few years. Left there, went to another company in the world of productivity tech, also doing a lot of AI around like how can contract management be a lot more efficient. But then about a year ago, a little bit more than that, I was approached by Omri, by our CEO, and the value proposition was just so compelling that I couldn't help but join. You said AI is this, it's become, this buzzword and it's a table, it's dinner chat everywhere.
Yep.
Um, but what's really fascinating is, V's been doing this in the world of health and fitness for the last 7 years, way before it was cool. And I think that AI is a great title, but really all that matters is what does it do for you, right? In the same way that we don't often talk about, the underlying technologies which make a lot of things that we're able to do today. We're not all dumbfounded all day long by the fact that planes stay in the air. We kind of take that for granted. Then I think that that's the way that AI is going to go, right? AI is going to become a method, a means of achieving goals. And I think that there are a lot of different goals. And I think it's really important to understand that, the goal, AI is not a goal within itself. And people say, what's your AI strategy? Well, AI is going to be a part of everything that we do. And I think we're seeing that more and more, but it's not an end, it's a means.
Yeah. It's really interesting watching you guys' evolution too, because I see, I was just looking at the website this morning and scouring through it, and it seems like and correct me if I'm wrong, but V started off by creating a lot of different products like the V trainer, right? And a bunch of different products that utilize and apply AI. So it's everyone's looking for the applications of AI that are useful to the consumer and to businesses. But then now you're in something that you deemed enterprise AI, right? Or AI as a service. So maybe let's set the table. Like, what do those mean? And then we
Sure.
can continue on with the conversation.
So we think about ourselves as enterprise AI for health. And what that really means is being able to take models, being able to take capabilities in the world of AI and productize them, right? Make them applicable for specific worlds, right? So if you think about, what we're doing inside V, and I don't want to get too deep into the models, one, because I'm not a data scientist, not going to do it justice, but it's how do you take a lot of these models, which help us understand human behavior at a very fundamental level, but how do we now make them very, very applicable for the specific industries that we're serving? Because, it's one thing to have uplift modeling or any type of modeling that's being used in the world of AI or, multi-arm bandit as a general concept. And it's another one to specialize that in the world of health. So what we're doing is we're taking the set of capabilities, this set of models, and we are really productizing them and making sure that they are applicable very, very, very specifically for the world of health. So, we're laser focused on the world of health. The only, industries that we work in are the world of healthcare, the world of fitness, and the world of wellness, because, we have a very clear mission, which is one, to improve health outcomes, and to maximize ROI, right? Like that's what we want to do for the people that we're working with. We want to be very specific. And we often get asked, why don't you guys do this for, retail, right? And we could, but specializing in the industry, understanding the industry, impacts your product, right? It impacts what you're bringing to market, it impacts the models. And I think that we're laser focused on this world because we want to make sure that our models, what they are able to predict, what they are able to optimize, what they're able to do is to make sure that in our way, and we're going to talk a lot more about that, like that we are helping people achieve their health outcomes, right? That end member helping them achieve their health outcome, but also, and as importantly, make sure that the organization is maximizing their financial returns as well, because those things go together, especially in a country like the US.
Yeah. Yeah. Capitalism is king here. Um, maybe you can walk me through some of the examples. I mean, I saw some of the brands that you work with, Samsung, Bowflex, Stronger You. There's a lot of really good brands. Uh, and I always find it easier to be explained through, an anecdote or an example. So like pick a company that you can talk about, a little bit more openly and then tell us how exactly you've come in and changed their health outcomes for their constituency and then, increase revenue.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think let's look at this in kind of in two paradigms. One of them is kind of the breadth of what we do. So we talked about enterprise AI, but if we really, what does it do for the actual companies that we're working with? So we're really
Yeah.
focused on three main business KPIs. The first one is reducing cost of acquisition. So whether that's getting people to enroll into a health plan, or whether that's getting people to sign up to your fitness studio, or whether that's getting people to sign up to cryo or whatever it is, how can you reduce the cost of acquisition and do that in a really efficient way? And, the secret sauce is pretty simple. It's we have more data, and we have a better understanding of consumers, which allows us to be a lot more targeted in the way that we're engaging, right? So if you think about, for example, let's take one fitness example, one healthcare example. If we're thinking about, the world of plan enrollment in the world of healthcare, if we're able to identify split households where people are on different plans, or if we're able to identify certain characteristics about families, about the way that they behave, about the media that they consume. And we can tell you who you should target, and we can also tell you who you shouldn't target. That's incredibly powerful, right? And
Mm.
reducing that waste, right? Reducing that spend by just helping you target the people that are actually going to be potentially relevant for you is really powerful. In the world of fitness, it's very, very similar, right? If you think about, like, let's look at Solid Core, which is one of the companies that we just started working with. We're super excited. So if you think about the world of acquisition with them, ultimately, they have locations, and there's one right near my house on the Upper East Side of New York. The traditional approach would be, we're just going to send direct mail, or we're going to, target everybody that lives in the radius of whatever it is, a kilometer or two, or a mile or two, whatever it is, depending on what trade area you're in. What we're saying is, well, no, if you think about this radius around solid core, there's probably only 25% of people which are even relevant for you to target for lots of different reasons. Maybe it's their socioeconomic status, or maybe it's, their age, or maybe it's, their preference. Like, there's just a lot of factors. And if we can help you say, hey, don't even target these people here, because the likelihood of being able to convert them is very, very low, then you're just reducing the cost of acquisition. It's very, very logical and simple. It doesn't mean that it's easy to do, right? The models which help you understand who you should and shouldn't target are incredibly, sophisticated, but the logic is really simple. And that makes a lot of sense to me. And that's the first product. The second product is engagement. So, you and I were talking about this before, Eric, but human beings were really, really good at signing up for things. And, which one of us hasn't been there at the end of December? We're like, January this year, I'm going to run a marathon and I'm going to start training. I'm going to sign up for a running club.
Yeah.
Great. But then, it's late February and it's cold and you don't feel like getting up and you don't want to go. And that's what we're trying to solve at Be Engaged. We're not going to help you get up from your bed, but we're going to help an organization. And again, it's like in healthcare and fitness. But if you think about the world of healthcare, for example, and you think about, chronic condition, you think about people that have diabetes or MSK or oncology, God forbid. Ultimately, a lot of the health plans have programs which are meant to engage these people and help them live healthier lives, right? Because they know that for the plan, they want to make sure that they can reduce cost of care. For the individual, they want them to live a much healthier life. What we can do is we're really, really good at identifying who are the members that are at a risk of falling off the wagon, right? Who are the members that, if we think about fitness, that have signed up for the gym and really wanted to come in, but something's changing about their behavior. And we believe that there's a risk there. But it's not only that, it's being able to identify out of that group of people that are at a risk of attrition, who are the ones that would benefit from getting a nudge, right? So imagine, Eric, that like, I don't just want to know that you're at a risk of not coming in, because, if you pull a list of all of your members which haven't come in 45 days, that's a pretty good approximation of the people that are at risk of churn. I want to be able to identify that you're persuadable, that you're somebody that if we give you the right type of nudge, we're actually going to be able to influence your behavior. And that's what we're trying to do across healthcare, across fitness, across wellness. We're trying to, Eric, Yoav, Jessica, and Sarah, these are 4 people, and we can see weeks and months in advance, so that before they've made the decision that they're going to leave or stop taking part in a program, we can identify, and then we can match them with the right type of intervention. So whether that's saying, hey, Eric would really benefit from somebody at the front desk calling him from Solid Core, or, a nurse calling him, but you are much better to send him a text message because he doesn't like people calling him. And Sarah, she should get a piece of direct mail, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the second thing that we do. It's engaging members for any purpose, reducing attrition, increasing lifetime value, and we can dive as deep as you'd like into it, but that's a basic idea. And the third part of what we do is basically, how can you use AI to reduce operational expenses in your business? And we touched upon this a little bit earlier, but there are a lot of processes today which are still incredibly manual and repetitive, and, which don't have, there are just much more efficient ways of dealing with them. If you think about the world of billing, if you think about the world of staffing, there's just a lot of areas. And what we're doing at V is we're able to provide a set of technologies that are able to really help businesses identify those areas where there's a lot of potential to automate, where there's a lot of potential to reduce their operational costs and automate that. So that was a really long answer to a short question, but those are the 3 things we focus on. It's like reducing cost of acquisition, engaging members and increasing lifetime value where relevant. And then thirdly, how can we transform your business and reduce the operational expenses there?
Oh, I love it. I mean, my simple mind loves things in threes. So you're speaking my language. Um, I was curious, just kind of a side note, but as a gym operator, I always found that things like merchant processing, chargebacks, all to be very overcomplicated, right? And I think like when I look
Absolutely.
at like the applications of AI, it's taking things that are just overcomplicated and simplifying them, for the human mind. I mean, what else something like specific like that, like merchant processing,
Yeah,
chargebacks, bill backs, is that something that gets cleaned up?
absolutely. But I think that, the analogy here is really relevant, because if you also think about the world of engagement generally, right? if you were able to take the GM, right, at every gym, let's just take a gym for a simple example, and tell them, go through the record of every single member you have. Look at when they came in, when they didn't come in. Look at if they opened emails or they didn't open emails. Look at what are the patterns of behavior. Could they theoretically replace AI? They could, right? We could just have an army of people going through people one by one. But what
Mhm.
AI allows you to do is to do that at scale, right? And, we work with Fit Athletic out of San Diego. And when we met their GMs, they told us that they sit there and they see somebody walk by. They go, oh, Eric, I haven't seen him in a long time. So they'll walk up to him and they'll chat with you and they'll, see how you are. We want to give that touch at scale, right? We want to be able to, make humans better at their jobs, right? We want to help them spend less time doing the repetitive things. We want to, so whether it's chargebacks or whether it's identifying members for engagement, what AI and machine learning is really good at doing is being able to take things that are just tedious, difficult, hard to do for humans, right? And give them the insights, right? Tell them where they should be focusing their time so they can make the most impact.
Yeah. Interesting. I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of how maybe I don't want to, present myself overconfidently, but I think I have a decent understanding of how it applies in like a gym and in a health club environment. One of the things I
Hmm.
want to ask you about was like healthcare plans. Like you brought that up.
Hmm.
Like how does it work in that environment?
Yeah. So when you think about the world of healthcare, there are a couple of things that we're doing. One of them, as we mentioned, is enrollment. And when you think about enrollment, that's everywhere from getting somebody to enroll into the specific plan, right? As we mentioned before, sometimes people are in a household where they're covered, but their spouse is also covered somewhere else, and they can make a decision on which health plan they should go to. So getting enrollment into the plans is one part of what we do, as well as Medicare, right? If you think about the world of Medicare and Medicare Advantage, we're really good at helping organizations be able to identify who they should target and how they should engage with them in order to drive more enrollment. Then if you take it a step further, right, if you think about the world of healthcare, right, you might have somebody who's got multiple chronic conditions. And right now, how do we help navigate them between the different things to make sure that, they are um, utilizing the right set of tools that they're getting offered by their health plans, right? And that can be self-funded employers, or that can be the plans themselves. So we're able to help the members really navigate between those things, and also make sure that there's some level of coordination, right? If you've got a few chronic conditions at the same time, how do we know how to engage you? What should we reach out about first, right? There's a lot of things which are happening there. That's kind of the second level, right? If we look at kind of all of the different types of um, programs, treatments that you can get. And the third level of what we're doing is when you look at a very, very, very specific program, right? So I think a good example is MSK, right? Where we've been working with, a huge national payer. And what we're helping them do is we were able to take the amount of members that signed up, right? There's an eligible population that can sign up for this MSK management program. We were able to triple the amount of people that ended up signing up. And from
Okay.
there, we were able to really we were able to really increase two things. One, the longevity. So how long does somebody stay on average in this program? And then how often are they engaging, right? How often are they speaking to a coach, or how often they're engaging with a digital type of um, plan, class, whatever they might have there. So in the world of healthcare, it's really about two things. One, getting people in the relevant door, whether that's health plan door or whether that's the different types of programs that they have. Then it's helping them navigate between all of those different things and making sure that they're getting enrolled in the right one. And then lastly, it's about making sure that they are being retained, right? That they're staying in these different programs. So we look at another example, diabetes management.
Hmm.
There it might be being able to identify and say, hey, we've seen something about Eric's signals. He's not logging, his glucose or whatever it might be. And now, what's the best way of engaging with Eric to get him back on track? Is it sending him, a piece of content through the app, or is it through getting a nurse to call him, or is it through sending a text message? And I think that, that matching of not just who's going to benefit from getting a nudge, but then what does that nudge need to be? How should
Yeah.
it be delivered, and when should it be delivered? That's where you really make an impact. Because also, if you think about the operator, right? If you think about, if you're running an MSK plan, and right now you've got a team of, patient coordinators or nurses, which need to reach out to people, when you ask, how are you guys deciding who they're reaching out to? It's typically a very rules-based approach, right? Anybody which we haven't seen in X or Y time. But that's very inefficient. And that causes a lot of frustration to the nurses as well, which are calling people that don't want to speak to them or not picking up the phone. So if you can make that time more efficient, and that's what we're doing, right? And it's amazing to see the transformation where all of a sudden, kidney management, and you hear from the nurses, every day I get a list from V of the 30 people that I should call and when I should call them. And it's never going to be 100%, but all of a sudden, way more people are picking up, way more people want to talk to them, and you can feel the impact there, right? And you can truly measure it. And you can see that, we're massive geeks at V, and I say that with love.
Yeah.
Everything we do is against control groups, and we're big on statistical significance. But it's really powerful to be able to see the impact of what you do, and being able to translate both into health outcomes. And again, we're not doing anything clinical. We're never giving clinical recommendations. What we are doing is identifying members who, in the case that we're talking about, are at a risk of attrition, identifying those that are persuadable out of that group, and then making sure that we are using the playbook that the health plan already has, or the organization already has, in order to drive them back into it, in order to nudge them back and to keep them longer, and to make sure that they get kind of the best results.
Awesome. And so we've kind of covered, gym and health club operators, covered, healthcare providers. Any other particular categories that you guys are working with right now?
Nutrition is a huge one for us.
Okay.
Right? Nutrition is a huge one. And then I'd say wellness generally. And I think, wellness and recovery is growing so quickly, right? And whether that's, stretching, which you're seeing more and more, infrared sauna that you're seeing across the country, cryotherapy that you're seeing in a lot of different places. There's a lot of really, really great stuff happening in that world of wellness and recovery. We're doing a lot of really fantastic stuff there. Ultimately, the way that we think about it is we can make an impact where there is repeatable health behavior, right? Repeatable, billable health behavior. That's where we make an impact. And so nutrition is also a great one, right? If you think about whether it's, vitamins and supplements, where that's a world in which there's a lot of repeat behavior. And if we can help identify, one, who are the members that might be interested, or who are the customers that might be interested in it, and then identify, which ones are, not adhering, and trying to understand why. Is it because they got the wrong thing? Is it because, they switched to a competitor? Whatever it is, right? But I think that all of those areas are areas where we're seeing a ton of impact, and dental as well, surprisingly. But I'd say that, like, broadly speaking, health behaviors, right? Things which you can tie to your health, and health is also, of course, mental well-being, right? So if you think about, I'm a massive meditation fan and have been for the last 2 years, but I think that that's a huge world for us as well, right? Being able to help make sure that they are spending their time trying to, acquire the right people, the people that are actually going to care about this, not wasting their money in places that they shouldn't. And then making sure that we're able to help people really stick with it, because that's the hardest part, right? I think that when the initial novelty of all of these things wear off, like, how can we help people stick to the things that they want to, right? How can you make it easier for people to stick to New Year's resolutions? How can you help, people stay with these behaviors, with these things which are making their lives better? And I think that it's fun, right? It's fun, and it's great to be able to try and impact people in that way. And I think that it's, I told you before we started recording, but I think that one of the quotes, and hopefully she hears this, but Alyssa Shaw, the COO of Solid Core, she told me that you never feel bad about trying to get somebody to work out. And
Sure.
there's a lot in that. And I think that I think about that every day, that AI has a lot of scary applications, right? And we hear about all these guys going to testify in Congress, and, and is AI going to take over the world? And I think maybe, I don't know. And who am I to say? But when you see the applications AI can have in helping people just live healthier lives, I think that there's just something really magical about that. And I think that, as we said before, when you pair it with the fact that it helps these organizations be better at what they do, and make more money, which is a good thing. I think that that's where when you can create a win-win for everybody, I think that that's where there's a lot of magic.
Yeah. The meditation's a interesting one. I've probably start and stopped a meditation practice well over 50 times. Like I want to, I have the best intention to do it. Right.
Right.
But then it's like you start your day and it's like a million other things you prioritize but that's the whole point of meditation is like, no, you got to prioritize this first so that everything else runs more smoothly. Anyway, um,
But
you know, I,
that's actually a really interesting example because I think that
yeah,
the problem with if we talk about engagement for a second, like engaging
yeah.
existing members, I think that one of there's two, in my opinion, two really big challenges in that world. One of them is identifying who you should reach out to, right? And right now, typically, even if you go to the most sophisticated organization, it's still a lot of rule-based stuff. So they'll have some logic in their HubSpot or Braze or Salesforce or Iterable or Klaviyo, where it says, if no event in last 15 days, then put them in this group. And that's fine, but it's not personalized, right? Because I know that Eric very specifically looks like, somebody else that had a very specific type of behavior. And a really simple example. Let's say that you used to meditate every day. If I haven't seen you in a week, that's a massive red flag and I should do something about it. But if I have somebody else who meditates once a week, if I haven't seen them in a week, it's not such a big deal. And that's like a really simplified example, but it's about one, being able to see on a more individual level, Eric needs a nudge. That's part one. But the second part is now, how do I optimize the actual outreach to you? So if I see what got you to stick to meditation for a week or 2 weeks in the beginning was that you used to do it at different times of day, then I need to
Mhm.
experiment with when I'm nudging you. Sometimes at 3 p.m., sometimes at 1 p.m. I should try with a push. I should try with a text. You need to experiment. Like we don't have a crystal ball, but I think that there needs to be that mindset of testing and iteration, because that's how you get people to change behavior. You can't do one size fits all. And I think that the big challenge is that the vast majority of organizations understand that one size fits all doesn't make sense and you're paying a massive cost of generalization, but it's difficult to put it into practice because at the end of the day, there's HubSpot or gym sales or any other system, and you need to tell it what to do. And I think that that's what's exciting about what we bring to it is we're not replacing your CRM and your HubSpot and your Salesforce. That's still going to be there. But we're going to help you identify who you should target, and then we can match them to the right thing to say to them. And that and it's moving away from one size fits all or few sizes fits all to one size fits one. And that's where you start seeing the real results. And that's where you get people. It's not going to be everybody, right? Maybe we can't get you to meditate, but maybe somebody that looks just like you, if we nudge them in the right way, we will be able to influence their behavior in one way or another.
Yeah, it's personalization, right? Which is another big buzzword this year.
Right.
In 2023 is like, how do we get the journey towards fitness and health for each individual more personalized? And we can do that through data and its applications, and presumably now through a very powerful tool called artificial intelligence. So it's pretty exciting. And one of the things I want to cover with you today, I'm going to try to think about how to present this question the way I want, but in all the conversations that are taking place about artificial intelligence, both, we could say at the dinner table, at the boardroom level, like wherever it may be, where do you think people are missing the mark? Where do you think are the biggest, like, mis people misconstrue it, or they're just not understanding it correctly? Like what are some of the places that we could be a little bit more accurate?
I think, there's this whole idea of like, technology adoption, where it starts off. I don't remember the name of it. It goes like this, right? In the beginning, there's like this massive hype and it feels like it's the solution for everything. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
AI is here and ChatGPT is going to replace, religion and whatever. And I think that we're seeing a lot of that, which is like, what's your AI strategy? What do you, AI has become like a goal within itself. And I think that that's a mistake. I think that the real question is, where can AI be applied? And I think that where can AI be applied really depends on the different types of businesses. But I think that there are a lot of areas that it can be applied. And I think that the way that people should be thinking about it is like, in a sense, what are the really obvious things today that you can't do because you're limited by the tools that you're using, especially when it comes to data and especially when it comes to granular things? And I'll try and explain what I mean by that. But, if you think about, I doubt that anybody would argue with the statement that better personalization will lead to better outcomes. It's nearly a dumb thing to say because it's so obvious. Then why doesn't it happen? Like, why do you still get these really, boring, generic emails? Like, open up your updates tab in Gmail and tell me how many of those messages that you got that actually resonated with you. On a good day, it's under 1%, I would say, right? So why
Sure.
does that happen? And I think that the reason that happens is because we didn't have the tools which allowed us to do something which is very obvious. Give the right person the right message at the right time. And I think that that's where AI is becoming particularly interesting. It's being able to take areas where there are vast amounts of data, where it's very difficult to the human, for a human to be able to see all of the patterns in there independently. It's difficult for them to identify what are the trends of the data is showing because it's not always obvious, right? There are things which are very counterintuitive sometimes in which models show you, right? There are correlations that you expect and don't show up, or vice versa. I'll give you a small example. One of the a good predictor of who you should be targeting to join your gym, let's take a really simple example, is how close they live to the gym, right? And that makes
Sure.
sense. But it's actually sometimes the inverse because, for example, if you have a gym which is HVLP, right, which is a relatively low membership dues, maybe the people that you should be targeting are actually the people which are commuting through your trade area. If your gym is in an affluent neighborhood and you've got a low price point, maybe the people that you should be targeting actually don't even live within a radius of 10 miles from you, but they commute through there every single day. And that's
Mm.
something that it's difficult for you to ask all of the questions in the world, but AI and machine learning can pick up on those trends and say, hey, you know what? Really interestingly, the highest LTV members you have live 25 miles away from here. And you know what's even more interesting? They only come in on weekdays. Tell you something more interesting than that. They only come in between 5 to 7 p.m. And all of a sudden, it's showing you something that was there. It was hiding in plain sight nearly, but it was very difficult for you to do. And I think that, that's one. And the other one, I'll give one more example. And I hope that the answer is not too elaborate, but the second one is personalization, right? So again, abused term. I think that was the last hype cycle was personalization, but everybody's familiar with A/B testing, right? And people say A/B testing
Mhm.
is personalization, but A/B testing suffers from a really, really fatal flaw. In A/B testing, you test out two variants, right? Let's keep it really simple. One of them is first month free, and the other one is get a pack of personal training. And that's the ad that I'm going to run. I'm going to run those two ads. In traditional A/B testing, you look to see what's worked, and then you say, okay, A is better than B. From now on, everybody gets A. But obviously, that's not the right thing to do, right? Some people preferred B. So where you want to be able to get to is if Eric needs to get message A, he gets message A. Yoav needs message B, he gets message B. Lisa needs another message, she gets message C. And again, it's logical. Why aren't people doing that? Because they didn't have the tools to do that, because they didn't have the ability to do that. And I'd even say very selfishly, that, what I find exciting about what we do is that we don't replace the existing tools. If you've got a member management system, you've got a CRM, it's hard to change those things. I've been in the world of trying to convince people to switch CRMs. It's hard. You've built things in it and you've trained the teams and nobody has an appetite for changing. But if you can make those systems smarter, if you can tell them, hey, let's use the campaigns you've set up, but I'm going to send the right people and it's going to make an impact and it's going to show you, I think that that's where you start seeing really, really fantastic things happen.
Yeah, love it, man. Yeah, since I got you here, and AI has just been on my mind all the time, like I was talking about, and I'm actually doing, I think it's next week, monitoring a panel for Athletic Tech Network to talk about people about AI and specifically in our industry. So, I'm always thinking of new questions to ask, but if we just let's zoom out for a minute, right? Like, where do you think, outside of like military applications and kind of, the ones, but where do you think AI is being used for the greatest benefit, outside of health and fitness? Like, is there any areas that you're looking at, you're like, damn, those guys are doing a really high quality work? Or do you feel like people who are doing really quality work are just kind of heads down now being really quiet?
That's a really great question. And honestly, I don't know if I'm knowledgeable enough to answer it smartly. I can tell you that from what I've seen, I think that in the world of fintech, a lot of
Hmm.
exciting things are happening, which I actually think are going to democratize access to capital. Because I think that particularly in the US, and I say this as an immigrant, which is, very, very appreciative of the US, um, credit scores are really tough, right? Like it's a very, very
Yeah.
rigid, archaic system. And I think that you see a lot in fintech now. How can we use a lot more data and lots more sources in order to assess the risk and assess the credit worthiness of people? But as a downstream impact of that, it will allow more personalized offers to people, right? So if somebody wouldn't have been able to get a line of credit before because they didn't have a credit history here, I think that there's a lot of work which is happening there, which is interesting. And I think that that's a great thing, right? Making the pie bigger, giving more people access to capital, giving more people the ability to try and do exciting things. So I think fintech is definitely a really interesting world. And then I think outside of the world of health, where I think that the applications are, just incredible, right? I was reading something yesterday, and I didn't read this deeply, but some mother whose kid has had, symptoms for 17 years and no doctor knew what was going on, and she typed it into ChatGPT and it told her what it was, and that's an anecdote, but still, like the potential is there. Also, the potential to freak out, right? Any of us who've ever Googled WebMD and immediately, told themselves that they're about to die in the next 24 hours. Of course, there's going to be some about that, but I think that that's a really, really interesting area. And I think, I think my worry about it is that AI is being used to generate a lot of content. Like I'm a massive literature lover, and I think that like my concern is AI is being used right now to create a lot of content, and I wonder, you know, are we going to see the pendulum actually swing to the other side, where human-driven content is actually going to be so valuable, and the ability to write well and the ability to articulate yourself well is going to be, or originally, like where does that go? Like that's something which is really, really interesting to me, because the first book written by AI has already been probably written, and the first song by AI has already been written, right? If you've
Mhm.
heard like the Drake without Drake and like Frank Sinatra and all of that. So it's interesting times, and we're clearly seeing some really interesting things happen. Um, and I think that there's, a lot to be optimistic about, because I think that it's gonna, hopefully it's gonna usher in, this new era of more access to more people. And I think that that's that, that has the potential to be a massive positive.
Yeah, it's the content thing is both alarming and kind of, I don't know. Obviously, I like to create content and I consume a lot of content. And one of my favorite things that is AI is, and it sounds funny, but it is funny. Like on Instagram, there's this handle, I don't know what it is, but they put Arnold Schwarzenegger into like these different characters. So you're gonna get like him singing, "The Hills Are Alive" from The
Yeah,
Sound of Music,
yeah,
and he's dancing around. It's his face, but it's his voice, and he's singing
yeah.
the song, and it's hysterical. I'm like, God, who doesn't want to see that? Like everyone I pass it to is like, this is so weird and funny, right? But then as it gets also really scary, like the deep fake stuff, and um, how do we know what content is real? Like, especially when we get into like the political aspect of things, it is a bit concerning. But when I like the way I personally use it is, I have a couple apps that'll just take my podcast and they'll create a newsletter, quote
Mhm.
unquote, right? But the newsletter kind of sucks. It's like it's not me. It's like it's not way anything I'm saying, but it does pull out the high points, which saves me time from going back and listening
Exactly.
to the entire thing, and then I can apply that. So, and the content things can be really interesting to see how people, but it's but you can, I mean, you can still tell, but at what point won't you be able to tell,
It's the
right?
Turing test, right? When will we not know that
Yes.
that machines generated it? And I think that, yeah, it's difficult to predict, right? It's difficult to imagine, and it's we're gonna have to live through it and see. Um, but I think, I think that when I take a very broad view, like macro of humanity, I think that typically, technologies have managed to usher in good more than bad. They always have costs, but I think that, and I think that that's a really good example of like, will this be able to usher in more content because you'll be able to spend less time re-listening to the podcast to pick out the best parts of what you want to put on. Again, you can play it the other way, which is a machine picking it for you. So is that the best? So there's lots of different
Yeah.
ways of thinking about this, but I think that, in a sense, I read a book one called Fish Don't Exist, highly recommended. And there was something interesting in there, which is people misunderstand Darwin as saying that the strongest will survive, but it's actually the most adaptable will survive. And I think about that a lot. And I think about, and especially in the world of AI, we can't wish it away. It's not going anywhere. So it's about, how do we learn to use it? How do we learn to help it enhance the best parts of us? And I think that the whole trust issue is a massive, massive, massive opportunity for somebody to solve, because how do you know what's real? And, if we really want to get meta out of it, what is real? So I think that there's
Yeah.
a lot of interesting questions which are coming up, but I think, we have to, we have to be there, and we have to make sure that to the best of our abilities, we're helping to push it in the right direction, in the direction that brings the most benefit to the most amount of people. And I think that, very selfishly, for me, being a part of V today, I think that that's awesome, right? The ability to go to sleep every night and say, hey, yeah, it's capitalism, and yeah, we're selling things to people, but ultimately the recipients of this, the end members, these are people that are going to live healthier and better lives. That's awesome. That's really, really great.
You're not the first executive that I've talked to on the show who got into the, fitness, health, and wellness space, and just thoroughly enjoyed it. Got out of it, from some other industries that are pure capitalism, right? With maybe not the best outcomes for society, and they get into here, and so other than like that that benefit that you're talking about, that you go to sleep well at all at night, you go to sleep well at night. Um, what other differences have you noticed about the fitness and health industry? Like, anything that's been contrary to some of your experiences in other industries?
Really nice down to earth people, like to be really, uh, you know, if anybody looks back, I've met some lovely people in the world of retail, and I've met a lot of lovely people in the world of finance and in the world of online gaming. There's a lot of really fantastic people, but I think that fitness down to earth, like, even those that have done really well and are running massive organizations, it's an industry of people, who are pretty kind, and generally speaking, I think that are in it for the right reasons. So I think that that's one big change. And I think that the other one is the opportunity. I think that, it's so early in the world of fitness and health in the way that they use data. It's so early, and it's, I think that I feel like, we're selling the picks and shovels, because it's the amount of data that, the world of health has is far, far, far beyond most industries, right? Like, think about retail, right? Think about I don't know where you like buying things. I'm wearing a Mack Weldon t-shirt, right? So Mack Weldon, how often does somebody buy that? 3 times a year, twice a year, 4 times a year? How many times are they opening up their emails? Think about fitness. People are walking into your gym 3 times a week, 4 times a week, once a week, twice a week. The amount of interactions that you have with those people, the amount of data that you can collect. A friend of mine, Brad, the VP operations at Midtown Fitness, amazing guy, super sweet. He told me that, they started collecting data on which pieces of equipment people were using. Like, the depth of data that exists inside this world of health and fitness. I think people have been sold a lot of stories about retention and this, that, and the others over the years in fitness. And that's made them
Mhm.
skeptical a little bit. And I get it. But I think that the level, the depth of data that the world of health and fitness has today means that the ability to truly get to one-to-one communications with people is the highest that I've seen in any industry. Yet the execution is still early. And that is just something that even if you look at it purely as a business person, I'm like, wow. And this world is only growing, right? It's like if you think about people today are so much more in touch with the importance of, working out, not just so that physically I look great when I go to the pool, but what does it mean for my mental health, right? What does it mean for my whole being? And people are thinking about recovery in ways that they've never thought about it before, right? Like, so this world is only growing. The amount of data in it is massive. The utilization is still very low. So there's just a ton that can happen here. And I think that the outcomes are going to be fantastic because like, you know, the honest truth is that I actually think that if more people and like if we finish on the note of fitness, I think that like more people working out will be a better world, right? Because I think that a lot of us are listening to Andrew Huberman and all those kind of people about the effects that it has on you, but you're healthier, you're calmer, you're happier. So if we can be a part of that through this, good things.
Yeah, I love it, man. Let's finish up with a couple things. So if you can, just share, any kind of updates on the business itself, its numbers from as far as like I think you guys have a Series A, what employees you're at, like where is the business at today? I know you are a private company, so share what you can.
Yeah, so we're growing very, very quickly. We've been, more than doubling over the last 4 or 5 years already. We get to
Awesome.
work with some of the biggest players in the country. So we've talked about some of our customers, but everywhere from, people like Optum and Anytime Fitness and 24 Hour Fitness and Gold's Gym and Solid Core, which I mentioned, and a bunch of others which I can't share quite yet, but I would love to. Things are really, really growing very, very, very quickly in V. Anybody listening, we're hiring. So V.co, have a look. We're always hiring great people. And I think, it's a really, really exciting time to be a part of the business. As you mentioned, we started off in the world of hardware. We've been doing enterprise SaaS now for the last 5 years, started with the world of retention and added on both the acquisition piece and the business transformation piece. So things are growing quickly. We're very focused on this kind of deeper, not wider approach. So we're not a fit for everybody. We typically tend to work with the larger organizations. So I would say that in the ranges of $25 million and up in revenue is where we really see that we can make an impact and make the juice, let's call it, worth the squeeze for our customers as well. So
Awesome, man. Well, I was just making notes on people that I want to introduce you to. So let's figure that. How can we help you as an industry? Like if people are listening right now, like what do you need help with? What would benefit? What would prompt people to reach out to you?
one, I think if any of these things are something that's relevant or interesting or challenges that an organization is facing, we're very, very consultative. And I think that people would be surprised by the amount of times we said, you know what, we don't think that we're the right fit. So I would encourage anybody that's listening, which, wants to think about acquisition differently because we are approaching it very differently, or think about retention differently, or think about, a lot of the things that they're doing from an operating, uh, 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 order of operations. I don't have a better way of calling it, but if there are any processes inside your business that you think could be optimized, come talk to us. We would love to be able to share our thoughts. We love the world of health, and we're very, very passionate about it. And I think that, the best thing that we can have is more and more good people in this world, which are in it for the right reasons and, help this industry grow.
Awesome. Awesome. And where would you like people to go, or how would you like people to get in touch with you?
So if you want to reach out to me, it's Yoav, Yoav at vi.co. And you can go to our website, vi.co as well. That's probably the best way of getting in touch. But yeah.
Beautiful. This has been a really fun conversation. Everything I hope for, Yoav. It's been really interesting to get your take on things. I mean, I could have asked you questions about, Skynet and, all the other fun things that, come about at the dinner table. But I think specifically for our audience, I think
Skynet
we
is
nailed a lot.
Q1 of next year. That's not quite yet.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Great. I'm looking forward to it. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me. Really appreciate it, ladies and gentlemen. Yoav Susz.
Thanks very much, Eric. Appreciate your time. Thank you for having me.